How to Become a Superior Gender, a global conversation on gender equality, Part 1. Welcome to our channel. Today, we are presenting the first part of a three-piece video on ultimately being the superior gender. It elaborates the call for us to lend a voice to individually becoming the superior gender by collectively asserting our rights, to changing the concept of gender equality to a more practical concept that embraces not just an idea but also the existing structures that include culture, religion, and other vices. Subscribe to our channel, like and share so we can create a global change. Today, we explore how cultures, leaders, and systems shape gender equality and how we, as global citizens, can help create a more equitable world. Around the world, leaders, thinkers, and activists are shaping conversations and crafting policies that define the future. But progress is not universal, and the road ahead is uneven. Does gender equality matter? Gender equality is more than a moral imperative. It's a driver of social justice, economic growth, and sustainable peace. For some, these roles offer predictability, structure, and dignity. One global leader once said, "Gender equality isn't just about fairness, it's about freedom." Around dinner tables and in policy circles, this question sparks debate. That idea has shaped groundbreaking initiatives, national pay equity laws, extended parental leave, and inclusive cabinet appointments. Empowerment doesn't mean abandoning heritage. It means allowing every individual, regardless of gender, the freedom to choose progressive leadership and feminist governance. Rather than opposing faith and feminism, this movement interprets sacred texts through a lens of justice and liberation. Across the Western world, some leaders have embraced feminism not just in speech, but in law. Through feminist hermeneutics, they reclaim the Quran's messages in support of equal rights, using faith as a vehicle for reform, not resistance. Another world leader famously encouraged everyone, men included, to call themselves feminists. Islamic feminism reminds us that the fight for gender equality isn't limited to secular ideologies. It is also deeply spiritual and rooted in belief systems that value all people equally before God. India's programs like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao highlight the need to protect and educate girls, while countries like the Philippines have strong female representation. Across the continent, similar efforts are underway. Ratified protocols, land reforms, and gender-based violence laws are transforming women's roles in political and economic life. Leaders acknowledge the issue, but changing attitudes, especially about unpaid care work and leadership, requires sustained effort. Under his watch, parental leave policies evolved, equal pay legislation passed, and government budgets were scrutinized through a gender lens. Tunisia elected a female prime minister. Qatar increased women's parliamentary seats. These leaders didn't act alone. From legislative chambers to grassroots activism, a growing movement recognized that true progress only comes when equality is institutionalized. In the West, many emphasize empowerment as a human right and societal benefit. Former United States President Barack Obama argued that feminism is about the idea that when everybody is equal, we are all more free, framing equality as essential to liberty. Xi Jinping, President of China, has linked women's progress with national progress. Under Xi, Chinese officials have emphasized that women's irreplaceable role in society is vital to China's modernization. Olusegun Obasanjo, former president of Nigeria, has highlighted women's essential role in development, for example, noting that African women remain the backbone of agriculture and have salvaged the situation in agriculture in Africa. This underscores that women are central to economic life on the continent. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, has backed new laws and initiatives targeting violence against women and workplace inequality. For example, Macron announced plans to address violence and harassment against women through tougher laws and education campaigns. Northern European countries like Finland, consistently top gender equality rankings. Finland's leaders make it a priority. Its official development policy even lists the rights of women and girls as a core objective. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil has re-emphasized social policies favoring women after a right-wing predecessor. Lula's government proposed a plan to promote and protect women, including an equal pay bill, and his new cabinet is a record 30% women. She warns that domestic and ODA allocations to gender equality remain woefully inadequate even as the world cuts funding for peace to armaments. Supporters argue that having men as primary earners and women as caregivers provides comfort, stability, and a clear sense of purpose for families. Indeed, some feel that these roles give predictability. For example, a mother caring for home and children may find deep satisfaction in that work. However, critics counter that rigid roles can become strictures that limit people's aspirations. They warn that such rigidity restricts individuals from pursuing their own interests and goals and can reinforce harmful stereotypes and inequality. Across cultures, debates often hinge on this tension. Are traditional divisions of labor a source of social order, or an anachronism that holds society back? The answer varies by context, but increasingly voices on both sides agree that the real issue is balance, drawing on beneficial traditions without imprisoning half the population. Demand gender impact assessments in national budgets. Push for equal pay, safe workplaces, and parental leave. Support leaders who champion women's rights not just in word, but in action. Bauhaus notes that every dollar invested in women's economic empowerment yields multiple times its value in social and economic gains. Likewise, Melinda Gates and the Gates Foundation point out that women's economic power drives broader prosperity. For example, when Africa's women farmers thrive, everyone benefits: the women themselves, the children. Another reminded us, when women and girls are equal, we all benefit. On one hand, there are progressive signals. Tunisia made headlines when it appointed Naila Boudin as the first female prime minister in the Arab world in 2021. Many Tunisians hailed Boudin's appointment as a historic step. For example, one Tunisian citizen said simply that the first Arab woman in this position is positive. Qatar and other Gulf monarchies have also taken small steps, such as granting women the vote and even allowing them to run for parliament. Women activists there urge Qataris to exercise those rights. As one candidate put it, to have all men is not the vision of Qatar, encouraging women to vote and lead. Some Gulf rulers have complied by appointing women to appointed legislative bodies. Qatar's emir, for instance, has twice appointed women to his Shura Council despite none winning election. These measures show a grudging official recognition that women's voices can no longer be ignored. On the other hand, restrictive policies remain entrenched. Saudi Arabia's male guardianship system is the starkest example in the region. Until very recently, every Saudi woman needed a male relative's permission to travel, marry, or even access health care. Human Rights Watch notes that these rules effectively keep women as permanent legal minors. Such patriarchal laws have only been eased slightly in the last decade, but they still limit women's autonomy. Many Gulf women still face pressure to conform to traditional roles, and critics argue that some governments use token empowerment like cosmetic reforms or a few high-profile female appointees to deflect calls for deeper change. The communities and the economies. Nobel laureate Malala Yousafzai has echoed this with a global call for girls' education. In her United Nations speeches, she reminds us that one child, one teacher, one pen and one book can change the world, underscoring education as the linchpin of equality. Together, these voices argue that progress on gender will pay off for all. In other words, many modern voices emphasize that men and women together must support equality. As Trudeau put it, Hiring and promoting more women isn't just the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do. He has reinstated ministries for women's affairs and prioritized violence reduction. Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa has noted stresses that society can only progress by improving women's lives. In India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched high-profile initiatives like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Save the Daughter, Educate the Daughter to combat gender bias in education. He hailed the program's 10th anniversary by noting it had become a transformative, people-powered initiative against gender bias. Modi points to improvements like rising girl-child school enrollment under these efforts. These Global South leaders tie women's empowerment to national development. When women and girls gain education and rights, the whole country benefits. Finland routinely ranks in the top 5 globally for equality, indicating that successive administrations have institutionalized support for gender parity. In short, most European leaders frame gender equality as a cornerstone of human rights and economic health. Under Presidents Muhammadu Buhari and Bola Ahmed Tinubu, both of Nigeria, the government has reiterated that national progress requires women's rights. Buhari observed that there can be no true national development without the empowerment of women and girls. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has publicly celebrated women's empowerment and backed some legal reforms, and new laws against sexual violence have been considered. For instance, Egyptian lawmakers recently moved to protect the anonymity of sexual assault survivors, reflecting apparent political will to protect women's rights and reduce violence. However, critics note that enforcement and deeper reforms remain weak. In Israel, women have held prominent roles, for example Golda Meir, and high representation in sectors like tech and law, yet challenges persist. Experts note Israel still lags behind in key areas: women's legislative representation, female labor force participation, and segregation of women into low-paying jobs, even though progressive laws exist. Current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government has women in cabinet and Knesset, but remains male-led. Societal debates on gender roles continue. Overall, Israel's example shows that visible women's leadership does not automatically erase deeper inequalities. And Tinubu explicitly committed in 2023 to advance the cause of women's empowerment and gender equality in our dear nation. In South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa frequently reaffirms the country's hard-won gains in gender rights and his administration's commitment to empower women, improve their lives, and advance gender equality, noting that today half of his cabinet are women. These African leaders generally argue that tapping the potential of women will benefit entire economies and societies, and that promoting gender equality and all-round development of women and children are important components of that modernization. In Japan, Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has made women's economic participation a policy focus. He has pledged that Japan's new form of capitalism will center on women's economic independence, and called for a society where men, women, and all people can enjoy a life of opportunity. These statements reflect a growing recognition in Asia that empowering women is key to economic growth and social stability. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has likewise embraced feminism openly. We shouldn't be afraid of the word feminist. Men and women should use it to describe themselves. Former First Lady Michelle Obama urged men to uplift women, noting that strong men who are truly role models don't need to put down women to make themselves feel powerful. These leaders stress that gender equality strengthens society as a whole, not just women, echoing the idea that true freedom and progress come when no one is held back. Around the world, gender equality is viewed through many lenses. Progressive leaders stress that empowering women benefits everyone, economically and socially. For example, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau famously insists that men and women should use feminists to describe themselves whenever they want. He has backed this rhetoric with action. Canada's 2018 budget enacted new equal pay laws in the public sector and added 5 weeks of shared parental leave. These measures were based on evidence. Government data show that women's entry into the workforce accounted for 1/3 of Canada's GDP growth over 4 decades, and economists estimate that full gender parity could boost Canada's GDP by up to 4%. In the United States, former First Lady Michelle Obama has also been a vocal champion of women's rights. She reminds us that no nation can thrive by holding half its people back. No country can ever truly flourish if it stifles the potential of its women and deprives itself of the contributions of half of its citizens. Michelle Obama even credits the strong men in her life, her father, brothers, and husband, who valued her and invested in her from the day she was born. And as one former First Lady said, "Strong men who are truly role models don't need to put women down to lift themselves up." Scholars from the region urge cultural shifts that prioritize social inclusion, with one critic emphasizing, "The Arab world can ill afford to ignore the potential of half its population." Traditional and cultural views on gender roles. Rwanda stands as a symbol of what is possible. Over 60% of its parliamentarians are women, the highest in the world. Cultural traditions shape gender roles deeply. In many communities, assigning caregiving roles to women and breadwinner status to men is seen as a way to preserve stability. But others argue such structures limit opportunity and identity. Are these roles empowering, or are they outdated constraints? The answer often depends on context. The truth may lie in balance, honoring tradition while opening new paths for all. The rise of Islamic feminism. In Muslim communities across the world, Islamic feminism has emerged as a transformative force. Islamic feminists insist that the true spirit of religious teachings upholds dignity, equality, and compassion. Their advocacy led to change, like the criminalization of triple talaq in India, a centuries-old divorce practice. In Africa, gender equality is increasingly viewed as essential to development. Following crisis and conflict, Rwandans made a deliberate choice to embed women into the heart of rebuilding efforts. In Asia, progress is uneven. South Korea and Japan boast world-class education but struggle with workplace parity. Economic growth alone has not erased patriarchal systems. The challenge is to combine policy reform with cultural transformation. In the Arab world, perspectives are diverse. Some leaders embrace reform, pushing for more female representation. Yet many nations retain restrictive policies like male guardianship systems that hinder mobility and independence. Global perspectives on gender equality. Global leaders offer a spectrum of views on gender equality, shaped by their country's contexts. In Asia, leaders also recognize the role of women in development. African leaders have also spoken on gender issues. In Europe, most mainstream leaders support strong equality measures. Views in the Middle East vary widely. Some leaders have made tentative moves to improve women's status. In the broader global South, leaders have highlighted gender issues in different ways. International advocates also make this case forcefully. United Nations Women's Executive Director Sima Bahaus emphasizes that gender equality requires investment and global solidarity. Meanwhile, traditional cultural perspectives often defend established gender roles. Perspectives in the Arab world exhibits both advances and setbacks, and leaders' statements reflect that tension. This is the end of this session. Proceed to the next video for the continuation of this series. What can you do? Subscribe to our channel, like and share so we can create a global change. Comment, vote, speak, mentor. Challenge systems that silence. Educate the next generation to see equality not as a favor, but as a foundation. One global voice said it best: a nation cannot flourish by stifling the dreams of its daughters. Let us build a future where that truth isn't just spoken but lived. Subscribe to our channel, like and share so we can create a global change. Let's break boundaries together.